ki jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishmar Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudev ki jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishmar Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishmar Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishmar Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Nitil Pravishta Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Nitil Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Patadasha Raghunath Shara Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Shri Surup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki jai. Namachay Shri Ras Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Kshetra Mandal Gaura Mandal Vaja Mandal Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Shri Radha Kund Shama Kund ki jai. Shri Yamuna Devi Ganga Devi ki jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Shri Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya ki jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Oh, and I think for some of you it's Nishinga Chaturdashi, isn't it? So for those who are following, Shri Nishinga Chaturdashi ki jai. Shri Nishinga Bhagavan ki jai. Bhakta Pravar Shri Palar Maharaj ki jai. For us here in Navadip, it's tomorrow. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shinitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Dandavat pranams Hari Priya Didi and Madhavi Didi. Hari Bo. Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. All right, so now we are going to go over the rest of the 10th canto. So, where are we? Okay, yeah. Solacing and and let's just quickly look over what were the previous chapters in the 10th canto that we just went over? Let's just see. Okay. Okay, so far we went over the 10th canto. So we went over the advent of Lord Krishna, prayers by the demigods for Lord Krishna in the womb, the birth of Lord Krishna, the atrocities of King Kamsa, the meeting of Nanda Maharaj and Vasudeva, the killing of the demon Putana, the killing of the demon Trinavarta. Lord Krishna shows the universal form within his mouth. Mother Yashoda binds Lord Krishna, the deliverance of the Yamala Arjuna trees, the childhood pastimes of Krishna, the killing of the demon Aghasura, the stealing of the boys and calves by Brahma, Brahma's prayers to Lord Krishna, the killing of Dhenuka, the ass demon, Krishna chastises the serpent Kaliya, the history of Kaliya, Lord Balaram slays the demon Pralamba, swallowing the forest fire, the rainy season and autumn in Vrindavan. The gopis glorify the song of Krishna's flute, the Venugit. Krishna steals the garments of the unmarried gopis, the Brahman's wives' best, worshipping Govardhan Hill. Lord Krishna lifts Govardhan Hill. Wonderful Krishna. Lord Indra and Mother Surabhi offer prayers. Krishna rescues Nanda Maharaj from the abode of Varuna. Krishna and the gopis meet for the rasa dance. The gopis search for Krishna. The gopis' songs of separation. The reunion. The ras dance. Nanda Maharaj saved and Shankachuda slain. The gopis sing of Krishna as he wanders in the forest. It's Yugal Geet. The slaying of Arishta, the bull demon. The killing of the demons Keshi and Vyoma. Akrura's arrival in Vrindavan. Akrura's vision, Viraha Geet. The prayers of Akrura. Krishna and Balaram enter Mathura. the breaking of the sacrificial bow. Krishna kills the elephant Kuvalayapid. The killing of Kamsa. Krishna rescues his teacher's son. And so now we've made it here. Uddhav's going to visit Vrindavan, and the song of the bee, Bhramar Geet. And we're going to finish off the rest of the 10th canto. We're going to go through all of this. So we have a lot to get through now. Hari Bol, Raseshwari Mataji, and Sukada Didi, Hari Bol. A solacing and soul-stirring visit. One day, Lord Krishna sent his intimate friend Uddhav to go to Vrindavan to console his parents and the gopis. Nanda Maharaj welcomed Uddhav warmly and inquired about the welfare of his sons. Uddhav could witness the unparalleled affection of Nanda and Yashoda as they lovingly remembered Krishna with tear-filled eyes. Uddhav praised their devotion profusely and passed the whole night talking about Krishna. In the morning, the Vraj gopis saw lotus-eyed Uddhav, who resembled Krishna in looks and attire. They brought him to a secluded place and began to remember Krishna's pastimes as they wept in separation. Srimati Radharani, deeply absorbed in Krishna, noticed a bumblebee, a Brahmar. Imagining it to be a messenger of Krishna, she indirectly rebuked Krishna, expressing her supreme love through 10 kinds of impulsive speech. Her song is called the Bhramar Geet. She contrasted her own supposed ill fortune with others' good fortune, while glorifying the names, forms, qualities, and pastimes of Krishna. She then declared that although Krishna may have abandoned the gopis, they could not possibly stop remembering him, even for a moment. Uddhav was astonished to see in the gopis the highest degree of pure devotion, and he tried to console them with Krishna's message for them. I left you all just to increase your attraction for me and intensify your remembrance of me. By these intensified feelings, you are sure to regain my association soon. The gopis asked Uddhav, is Krishna happy in the company of his relatives and women of Mathura? Does he still remember us and the rasa dance? Will he again appear before us? We simply cannot stop hoping to attain Krishna, for his footprints through the land of Vraj remind us of his graceful gait, generous smiles, and gentle talks. The gopis then loudly and piteously said, "O Govinda, please come and destroy our suffering." Uddhav pacified the gopis, who worshipped him as non-different from Krishna. Praising the exalted gopis, Uddhav sang, "These gopis have perfected their lives by their unalloyed love for Krishna. Even the goddess of fortune could not get the same mercy as the gopis attained during the rasa dance. It would be my great fortune to take birth as a creeper or a bush in Vrindavan and receive the dust of the lotus feet of these gopis." Uddhav stayed in Vraj for several months, giving pleasure to the Vrajvasis by reminding them about Krishna in various ways. Thereafter, he returned to Mathura and described to Krishna everything he had experienced in Vraj, fulfilling the promises and desires. One day, Shri Krishna went to the home of Trivakra as per her earlier invitation and fulfilled her desire. That is Kubja, right? Simply by performing one service of offering sandalwood paste to Krishna, Trivakra attains the rare personal association of Krishna. Krishna then went to Akrura's house with Balarama and Uddhav. Akrura honored them and offered heartfelt prayers to Krishna and Balaram. Krishna praised saintly Akrura as purifier of the sinful, and asked him to visit Hastinapur to find out the well-being of the Pandavas, the sons of his paternal aunt Kunti. Akrura went to Hastinapur in several months. Vidura and Kunti, the envious sons of Dhritarashtra, had tried to destroy the Pandavas by various evil means and were contemplating further atrocities. Kunti Devi spoke of her anguish with tearful eyes, chanted Krishna's names, expressed expressed her surrender to him and desired his support and protection for her sons. Akrura reassured Kunti that her sons, born of great demigods, will never be unfortunate, but will soon receive the greatest possible good fortune. Akrura then spoke to Dhritarashtra. The duty of a religious king is to treat all his subjects equally. What to speak of his sons and nephews? What to speak of sons and nephews? By such fair behavior, you will gain fame and fortune. Otherwise, you will attain infamy in this life and hellish existence in the next. Dhritarashtra replied, Your lightning-like beneficial statements cannot become fixed within my cloud-like mind. My tight knot of affection for my sons has made me biased toward them. Destiny. No one can transgress the arrangement of the Supreme Lord. His purpose for descending into the Yadu dynasty will inevitably be fulfilled. Understanding Dhritarashtra's partisan mentality, Akrura returned to Mathura and related everything to Krishna. Defeated 17 times. Asti and Prapti, the two queens of Kamsa, went to Magadha, the home of their father, Jarasandha. They informed him of their husband's death. Seeing his daughters as widows, Jarasandha vowed to rid the earth of all the Yadavas. Gathering an immense army, Jarasandha attacked Mathura. Krishna had descended to destroy the burden of the earth. By his will, there appeared two effulgent chariots and the Lord's personal weapons. Krishna and Balaram then took up the weapons, mounted the chariots, and went forth to attack Jarasandha's army. Krishna twanged his bow and rained down a torrent of arrows upon the miscreants who supported Jarasandha, and soon annihilated all of them. Balaram arrested Jarasandha, but Krishna knew that Jarasandha would assemble another army and return again to fight, and that would facilitate Krishna's goal of removing the earth's burden. Unknowingly, Jarasandha would collaborate with Krishna's plan. Consequently, Krishna had Balaram release Jarasandha. As expected, Jarasandha attacked Mathura 17 times, and each time Krishna destroyed his entire army. A fort city within the sea. When Jarasandha prepared to attack Mathura for the 18th time, talk about determination. So when he went to attack Mathura for the 18th time, the king of the Yavans, named Kalyavan, also tried to attack Mathura with 30 million soldiers. Kalyavan had been searching for a worthy opponent, and Narad Muni told him to fight the Yadavas. Krishna was concerned about the simultaneous attack of two huge armies on the Yadavas. Krishna then constructed a wonderful city called Dwarka within the sea and moved all Yadavas there by his mystic power. Then Krishna went out of Mathura. Seeing Krishna without weapons, Kalyavan put his own weapons aside and ran toward Krishna to fight with him. Krishna ran away from Kalyavan, yet stayed within his vision, barely beyond his grasp at every step. Kalyavan hurled insults at Krishna, calling him a coward for running away from an opponent. Eventually, Krishna led Kalyavan toward, is that Ranchor? I think so. Eventually, Krishna led Kalyavan toward a mountain cave and entered it. Kalyavan followed Krishna and saw a man lying inside the cave. Thinking that it was Krishna lying there, Kalyavan kicked the man who had been sleeping for a very long time. Having been awakened so violently, that man looked at Kalyavan angrily, which made him burn to ashes within a moment. Thus, Krishna had Kalyavan killed by his devotee without personally doing it. I wonder why Krishna didn't want to kill Kalyavan. This powerful person was Muchukunda, a son of King Mandhata. He had protected the demigods from the demons for many years. Eventually, the demigods obtained Kartikeya as their protector and allowed Muchukunda to retire, offering him the benediction of uninterrupted sleep, as desired by Muchukunda. After Kalyavan was burnt, Sri Krishna came before Muchukunda, who then offered prayers and asked for perpetual devotion unto him. Krishna granted his desire. Krishna went back to Mathura and destroyed the army of Kalyavan, and then set off for Dwarka. Just Jarasandha arrived on the scene with a huge army of 23 Okshahini. Whoa, it's a specific army contingent like a battalion. I've never seen that word before. It says no definition found. Okay. Balarama and Krishna fled from the site, acting as if fearful. Foolish Jarasandha chased them as they reached a mountain named Pravarshan and climbed it. Unable to find them, Jarasandha set fire on all sides of the mountain. Krishna and Balaram jumped off the mountain peak unseen by Jarasandha's armies. Jarasandha believed that Balaram and Krishna were burnt to death and returned to his kingdom. The two brothers went to Dwarka. The first love letter and the first queen. Princess Rukmini was the young daughter of Bhishmaka, the son of Vidarbha. She had heard of Krishna's beauty and other attractive qualities from sages like Narad Muni, and thus desired him as her husband. Lord Krishna also wanted to marry her. Rukmini's brother Rukmi was envious of Krishna and wanted her to marry Shishupal instead. Rukmini Devi then wrote a letter expressing her love for Krishna and sent it to him through a trustworthy Brahman. The Brahman traveled to Dwarka and Krishna welcomed and honored him. The Brahman then showed Srimati Rukmini Devi's letter to Krishna that read, "O Lord, I am fully attracted to you ever since I have heard about you. Please come and take me away. On the day before my planned marriage with Shishupal, I will visit the temple of Ambika, from where you could come and kidnap me. I shall give up my life if you don't grant this favor. Then perhaps in my next life I will be able to obtain you." Krishna set out for Vidarbha at once on his chariot driven by Daruka. Lord Baladeva also gathered his entire army and quickly went to Kundinapur, the capital of Vidarbha. Rukmini was anxious. Not seeing the Brahman or Krishna until the night before the wedding, she cursed her bad fortune. Just then, she felt her left side twitch, a good omen. For ladies, if their left side twitches, it's a good omen. For men and bad, and for men it's reversed. So just then she felt her left side twitch, and the Brahman came and informed her of Krishna's firm promise to kidnap her. Krishna and Balaram had arrived at Kundinapur, and Bhishmaka received them with reverence and worshipped them with various gifts. The people of Vidarbha felt that Krishna alone would be a suitable husband for Rukmini and prayed for their union. Meanwhile, Rukmini went to the temple of Ambika and prayed to be allowed to have Shri Krishna as her husband. Then she left the temple and walked with deliberate steps until she noticed Krishna. Then, as everyone looked on, Krishna came on his chariot and took the princess with him. The inimical kings, including Jarasandha, pursued Krishna. Seeing the violent attack, Rukmini became fearful, but Krishna encouraged her. Balaram and the Yadavs began to annihilate the opposing army. The enemy kings, headed by Jarasandha, withdrew their further attempts. Jarasandha consoled Shishupal, who then returned to his kingdom. But Rukmi took a vow that he would not return to Kundina until Krishna had been destroyed and Rukmini rescued. Rukmi sent out with his army and struck Krishna with arrows and demanded that he release Rukmini. Krishna broke Rukmi's weapons to pieces. Then he raised his sword to kill Rukmi, but Rukmini pleaded him for her brother's life. Krishna then disfigured Rukmi by shaving off bits of his hair here and there. Balaram appeared at the site and gently reproached Krishna for disfiguring the now family member Rukmi. Balaram then pacified Rukmini. Rukmi constructed a city on that very spot and stayed there, maintaining his angry mood. Lord Krishna took Rukmini to Dwarka and married her. A precious jewel and 2 pristine queens. Satyajit, a resident of Dwarka, received an auspicious gem called the Shamantaka Mani. Isn't it Shamataka with a Sha, or is it actually Sa? Anyways, I don't know. I'm just going to say Sha. So he received the Shamantaka Mani from the sun god. Every day, the gem produced a large quantity of gold, and wherever it was worshipped, no calamity could occur. On one occasion, Krishna told Satyajit that it would be more appropriate for such a gem to be with the king, but greedy Satyajit refused. Shortly thereafter, Satyajit's brother Prasena wore the Shamantaka jewel on his neck and went out for hunting. A lion killed him and took the jewel, and Jambavan, the king of bears, killed the lion and gave the jewel to his son to play with. Satyajit presumed that Krishna had killed Prasena for the Shamantaka gem and started spreading rumors amongst the people. To clear the blemish on his name, Krishna went out to search the jewel and eventually found it in Jambavan's cave. Jambavan considered Krishna an ordinary man and began fighting with him. After 28 days of fights, when Krishna's desire to fight was fulfilled by fighting with a pure devotee, Jambavan realized that Krishna was none other than his worshipable Lord Ram. Jambavan offered him prayers and with great devotion presented the Shamataka jewel to Krishna along with his daughter Jambavati. Lord Krishna returned to Dwarka with the jewel and his new wife Jambavati. He then gave the jewel to Satyajit, who felt shameful while accepting it. To atone for his offense, Satyajit decided to offer the jewel back to Krishna along with his daughter Satyabhama. Krishna married Satyabhama but refused the jewel. After marrying Satyabhama once, Krishna went to Hastinapur, hearing that the Pandavas had supposedly been burned to death in the palace of Lak. Although Krishna was aware that the powerful Pandavas were alive, he just went to Hastinapur with Balarama as a matter of worldly protocol. When Krishna was out of Dwarka, Akrura and Kritavarma incited Shatadandva to steal the jewel from Satyajit. That was not cool of Akrura. Sinful Shatadandva murdered Satyajit in his sleep and stole the jewel. Satyabhama then rushed to Hastinapur to report the sorrowful news of her father's gruesome murder to Sri Krishna, who then returned to Dwarka to kill Shatadandva. Shatadandva left the jewel with Akrura and fled for his life. Krishna pursued him and beheaded him with his chakra. Hearing this, Akrura fled to Benares. Eventually, Krishna had Akrura come back to Dwarka, and after making him admit his guilt, he returned it to Akrura. 5 more queens. Once Krishna visited the Pandavas at Indraprastha. He spent time with Kunti Devi, Yudhishthir, and others, and happily stayed as their guest for several months. One day, Krishna and Arjuna went hunting in the forest and saw a charming young maiden named Kalindi, the daughter of the sun god. She desired to attain Lord Vishnu as her husband and had been performing austerities. Krishna took Kalindi onto his chariot and later married her at Dwarka. Thereafter, at the request of the Pandavas, Krishna had Vishvakarma, the architect of the demigods, construct an attractive city for them. To please Agni, the fire god, Krishna had Arjuna help him devour the Khandava forest. Agni was very satisfied and presented Arjuna a chariot. Agni was satisfied and presented Arjuna a chariot, the Gandiva bow, horses, 2 inexhaustible quivers, and an armor. While the Khandava forest burned, Arjuna saved a demon named Maya from the blaze. Maya Danava reciprocated by building Arjuna a splendid palace. Krishna then went back to Dwarka. Sometime later, Krishna went to Avantipur, where, in the presence of many kings, he abducted the beautiful maiden Mitravinda. This sister of the king of Avanti was very much attracted to Krishna. Later, Krishna went to the kingdom of Ayodhya and won the hand of Nagnajiti, also called Satya, the daughter of King Nagnajit, after subduing the 7 ferocious bulls by manifesting himself in 7 separate forms. The rival kings who had been defeated by the bulls tried to attack Lord Krishna. Arjuna then defeated them, and Krishna proceeded with Nagnajiti to Dwarka. Subsequently, Shri Krishna abducted Lakshmana, the royal daughter of the king of Mathura, from her Swayamvar ceremony. Later, he also married Bhadra, a princess of the Kaikeya kingdom. More than 16,000 queens. Narakasura, the son of the earth goddess from Lord Varahadev, kidnapped thousands of girls. He had also stolen the demigod Varuna's umbrella, Mother Aditi's earrings, and the playground of the demigods known as Mani Parvat. King Indra went to Dwarka and complained about the demon to Krishna. Krishna then went to Narakasura's capital on the back of Garuda, along with Satyabhama. At the entrance of the city, Krishna beheaded the demon Mura with his disc and carried Mura's 7 sons, and killed Mura's 7 sons. Thereafter, Narakasura himself came to fight with the Lord. After a long battle, Krishna cut off Narakasura's head with his chakra. Subsequently, the earth goddess Prithvi came to Krishna and offered her prayers. She gave him various items that Narakasura had stolen and presented Naraka's frightened son at Krishna's lotus feet. Krishna pacified him and made him the king. Krishna then entered Narakasura's palace and found 16,100 young girls. At heart, they all spontaneously accepted Krishna as their husband, and the Lord sent them to Dwarka. He then went to heaven with Satyabhama and returned Aditi's earrings. Indra and Shachi Devi welcomed and worshipped him. While there, Satyabhama desired the heavenly Parijata tree, and Krishna uprooted it and took it to Dwarka. Krishna uprooted it to take it to Dwarka. Although Indra had just received a favor from Krishna, who killed Narakasura, he opposed Krishna's taking of the Parijata tree. Krishna defeated Indra in a fight and took the heavenly tree. Back at Dwarka, and oh my God, Indra also, this is after the whole Govardhan Leela also, and Indra still, what to speak of, my God, just no shame. Anyways, back at Dwarka, Krishna married the 16,100 princesses by manifesting himself in those many forms. One day, Krishna sat at ease in Rukmini's room and started teasing her by saying he wasn't a worthy husband for her, and that she could have chosen another qualified king. Tender-hearted Rukmini began to cry and fell unconscious. Krishna picked her up from the floor, consoled her, and made her happy again. In this way, Krishna played the part of a householder and remained constantly in the palace of every queen, who thought she must be his favorite wife. All the queens were entranced by Krishna's beauty and loving conversations, but Krishna's mind was never agitated by their most exquisite feminine attributes. Krishna was attracted only by their loving devotional service. Although each queen had hundreds of maidservants, they would personally render Krishna menial service. Each queen had 10 sons, who in turn each fathered many sons and grandsons. The fight with Lord Shiva. Once Krishna's son Aniruddha was captivated by the 1,000-handed demon Banasura. Captivated or captured? Okay, anyways, by the thousand-handed demon Banasura with his mystic Nagapash. Aniruddha was being faithfully served by Banasura's daughter, Usha, who was very much attracted to him. Okay, I got it. Hearing this news from Narad Muni, the Yadav warriors led by Lord Krishna attacked Banasura's capital. Banasura was a great devotee of Lord Shiva, whom he had pleased by playing musical instruments with his 1,000 hands while Shiva danced, Andava. When Shiva offered Bana a boon, Bana asked Shiva to become the guardian of his city. As the Yadu army began destroying Banasura's soldiers, Shiva was obliged to fight on Bana's behalf and released his Shiva Dwara weapon. It was overwhelmed by Krishna's Vishnu Dwara weapon. Ultimately, Shiva had to pray for Bana's life, and Krishna mercifully spared him with only 4 hands, thus destroying his false pride. Krishna then set off for Dwarka with Aniruddha and his bride Usha. The Saga of a Lizard. One day, the young Yadu boys, while playing in the forest, saw a huge lizard inside a well. Being unable to lift it up, they all went to Lord Krishna and brought him to the well. The Lord easily lifted the lizard with his left hand. By his touch, the lizard was transformed into a demigod. Upon being asked by Krishna, the demigod explains, "I was King Nriga, son of Ikshvaku. I gave charity of countless cows to numerous Brahmins. Once I gave a cow in charity to a Brahmin, unaware that the cow actually belonged to another Brahmin and had wandered into my herd. The 2 Brahmins quarreled, and I begged forgiveness and requested them to accept 100,000 cows each in exchange for that 1 cow. But neither agreed. Later, after my death, I was taken by the Yamadutas to Yamaraj, who asked me which I preferred to do first, suffer the results of my sins or enjoy the results of my pious acts. I decided to suffer my sinful reactions first, and thus I assumed the body of a lizard. Nriga then offered prayers to Krishna and went to heaven in a celestial airplane. Krishna then instructed everyone on the dangers of stealing a Brahman's property. So don't ever take no takey backsies. Otherwise, you'll turn into a lizard. Lord Balaram's unique pastimes. Once Balaram went to Vrindavan to meet Nanda, Yashoda, and the other Vrajavasis. He reciprocated their love and affection and pacified the anguish of the gopis, who were overwhelmed by feelings of separation from Krishna. He thus stayed for 2 months. One day, Lord Balaram enjoyed pastimes in the forest with the gopis and called out to the Yamuna river for sporting in her waters. But Yamuna ignored his commands. Balaram then started to pull Yamuna with his plow, splitting her into hundreds of rivulets. Trembling, the goddess Yamuna appeared and fell at his feet, praying for forgiveness. The Lord then entered her waters with his girlfriends and sported for some time. Duvida, an ape, was the friend of Narakasura, whom Krishna had killed earlier. Desiring to avenge his friend's death, Duvida inflicted many atrocities by setting fire to the homes of the cowherds, flooded coastal lands by turning the ocean's water, tearing down the trees in the sages' ashrams, passing stool and urine on the sacrificial fires, imprisoning people in mountain caves, and polluting respectable women. One time, Duvida came to Raivataka mountain, where he found Lord Baladeva in the company of some women. Duvida displayed his anus to the women, insulted him by making crude gestures and passing stool and urine. His outrageous behavior angered Baladev, who then fought with him. After a very elaborate fight, Balaram struck Duvida, who had then vomited blood and fell down dead. Duvida, the gorilla, wanted some revenge. It's a song by Bhavatarani Mataji. Is Bhavatarani Mataji watching? I love the end part though. Davida died vomiting blood. Davida died vomiting blood. Davida died vomiting blood. Dun, 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 dun. Anyways, Samba was the son. Hey guys, can you see me now? The power went out. Just checking it's working. Think it's still working, right? And Danda pranams Gargaraji, Prajumna Bru, Mantramurti Mataji, Sudevi Didi, Rohit Radhakrishnanji, Raj Bhuvan Yadav. I think it's still working. Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Haripriya. Okay. So Samba was the son of Krishna and Jambavati. As it is common for Kshatriyas, Samba kidnapped Duryodhana's daughter Lakshmana from her Swayamvar. 6 warriors of the Kauravas together arrested him at Hastinapur. Hearing of Samba's capture, Lord Balaram went to Hastinapur, where the Kauravas honored him with due respect, but later became angry when he conveyed Ugrasena's demands to release Samba. They said, "The Yadavas have obtained their royal thrones from us, the Kauravas, but now they are presuming themselves our equals and giving us orders?" Considering them maddened by false prestige, Lord Baladev decided to deal with them through brute punishment. He took his plow and began dragging Hastinapur toward the Ganges. Seeing their city in imminent danger of falling into the river, the terrified Kauravas quickly brought Samba and Lakshmana before Lord Balaram and began to glorify him, seeking forgiveness. Baladev then returned to Dwarka with Samba and Lakshmana. The real Vasudeva. While Lord Balaram was in Vraj, a king named Pondraka challenged Krishna. Encouraged by his foolish associates, he announced himself to be the real Vasudeva, the Supreme Lord, and sent a message to Krishna to give up his false claim and divine symbols. Krishna later went to Kashi and annihilated the armies of Pondraka and his supporter Kashiraj, and beheaded them with his chakra. Because Pondraka had constantly meditated on the Supreme Lord, even dressing like him, he attains liberation. To avenge Kashiraj's death, his sons named Sudakshina, with black magic rituals, produced a fearsome demon with a body of flames. He at once set off for Dwarka carrying a fiery trident. Krishna released Sudarshan Chakra that overpowered the demon, who then returns to Kashi and burnt Sudakshina and his city to ashes. The Lord's unique household life. Once Narad Muni wanted to see Lord Krishna's diverse activities in his unique family situation with more than 16,000 queens in Dwarka. Thus, arriving in Dwarka, Narad entered different palaces where he saw Krishna engaging in various activities like receiving guests, playing dice, caressing infant children, performing fire sacrifices, feeding the Brahmins, chanting the Gayatri Mantra, sleeping, consulting with ministers, playing in water, and so on. Having seen all this, Narad offered prayers to Krishna, the performer of superhuman deeds. Krishna then honored the sage properly, and Narad departed, continuously meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. God's eagerness to glorify his devotees. One second, I just wanna see where I am. Okay. Once a messenger came and informed Krishna that Jarasandha had captured 20,000 kings who were surrendered devotees of Krishna. Just then, Narad Muni came and informed Krishna that King Yudhishthira was seeking Krishna's permission and presence for performing the Rajasuya sacrifice. Omniscient Krishna asked Uddhav to determine which of the two matters should be attended to first. Knowing the heart of Krishna, Uddhav advised Krishna to go to King Yudhishthira, whose Rajasuya sacrifice would fulfill both the purposes eventually. Lord Krishna went to Indraprastha with his queens. To perform the Rajasuya sacrifice, Yudhishthira had sent his brothers to conquer various directions, who then brought back abundant wealth after defeating many kings except Jarasandha. Thereafter, as per Lord Krishna's plan, Bhima, Arjuna, and Krishna disguised themselves as Brahmins and went to the palace of Jarasandha, who was very devoted to the Brahminical class. They flattered him and requested him to grant their desire. Although Jarasandha detected them as warriors, still he agreed. Then Krishna discarded his disguise and asked Jarasandha to fight him in a one-to-one combat. But Jarasandha refused, saying that Krishna was a coward who had once fled the battlefield. And he considered Arjuna inferior in age and size. But he considered Bhima a worthy opponent. Thus, Jarasandha and Bhima began to fight. As both of them were equally strong, neither could gain victory. Krishna then indicated Bhima how to kill Jarasandha by splitting a small tree branch in half. Right, because Jarasandha was born into two parts, and then was it a Rakshasi? Yeah, I think it was a Rakshasi. She joined him together and brought him to life. So Bhima then stepped on one of Jarasandha's legs and caught the other with his arms and tore him apart into two pieces. After Jarasandha's death, Krishna appointed his son as the ruler of Magadha and released 20,800 kings he had he released the 20,800 kings he had imprisoned. The kings offered their heartfelt prayers and begged for perpetual remembrance of his lotus feet. The Lord granted their desire and assured that they would attain him at the end of their lives. Krishna then sent them to their respective kingdoms after offering gifts. Krishna, Bhima, and Arjuna then departed for Indraprastha. King Yudhishthira then happily commenced the Rajasuya sacrifice conducted by exalted priests including Bharadwaj, Gautama, and Vasishtha, and attended by many exalted guests of all four social orders. Upon the advice of Sahadev and the heartfelt approval of the exalted attendees, Yudhishthira decided to offer the honor of first worship, Agra Puja, to the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. Yudhishthira washed Krishna's feet and sprinkled the wash water on everyone's head. Unable to tolerate this glorification of Krishna, envious Shishupal rebuked the wise elders for choosing Krishna and blessing Krishna in many ways. Krishna remained silent, but some people covered their ears, some departed from the hall, and the Pandavas prepared themselves to kill Shishupal. Krishna stopped the Pandavas, and he himself beheaded Shishupal with a Sudarshan disc. Shishupal also attains liberation by constant meditation on Krishna, although out of enmity. Yudhishthira's royal palace, constructed by Maya Danava, was endowed with many astounding features. Seeing Yudhishthira's prosperity and opulence, Duryodhan became extremely envious. One day, Yudhishthira was sitting with Krishna in his royal assembly hall, attended by his subordinates and family members, manifesting magnificence equal to that of Indra. At that time, Duryodhan entered the hall in a fitful mood. In one place, he fell into the water, mistaking it for solid floor. Seeing this, Bhima and some ladies began to laugh. Duryodhan became extremely embarrassed and left the assembly hall in a fury and immediately departed for Hastinapur. A band of demons at Dwarka and Mathura. How much more is left? 4 more pages. Okay. What time is it? 8:17. Okay. a band of demons at Dwarka and Mathura. When Krishna was in Indraprastha, a demon named Shalva, who was a friend of Shishupal, attacked Dwarka. The Yadavas had also defeated him during Krishna's kidnapping of Rukmini. Having vowed to rid the earth of all the Yadavas, he worshipped Lord Shiva and obtained a flying iron city named Sobha that could go anywhere. Shalva came in his airplane and bombarded Dwarka with boulders and other missiles and produced a whirlwind. The Yadu heroes, including Pradyumna, Satyaki, and others, battled with Shalva's forces for 27 days and nights. When Lord Krishna returned to Dwarka, he at once came to the battlefield on his chariot driven by Daruka. Seeing the Lord, Shalva threw his spear at Krishna's charioteer, but the Lord shattered it to pieces and pierced Shalva and his Sobha vehicle with numerous arrows. Shalva shot an arrow that struck Krishna's left arm, and the Lord dropped his Sharanga bow. Shalva took this opportunity to insult Krishna. Krishna then struck Shalva with his club, but the demon disappeared. Then a messenger came to Krishna with the news from Mother Devaki that Vasudeva had been kidnapped by Shalva. Hearing this, Krishna apparently lamented like an ordinary man. Shalva then appeared in his plane and beheaded a person who looked just like Vasudeva. But taking the opportunity, omniscient Krishna pierced him with a shower of arrows and demolished his Sobha vehicle. Finally, he beheaded Shalva with his Sudarshan disc. Shalva's friend Dantavakra then attacked Mathura to avenge his friend's death. Krishna went to Mathura to fight Dantavakra, who then insulted Krishna with harsh words and weapons. Without budging in the slightest, Krishna hit Dantavakra's chest, causing his death. Dantavakra's brother, Vidurat, then confronted Sri Krishna, but was beheaded by a Sudarshan disc. Thereafter, Krishna visited Vrindavan for 2 months, and finally returned to Dwarka. An eventful pilgrimage. The disputes between the Pandavas and Kauravas eventually led them to the Kurukshetra war. Lord Balaram chose to remain neutral and went on a pilgrimage. He bathed in several sacred places and eventually came to a holy forest named Naimisharanya, where great sages were performing a sacrifice. Balaram noticed Romaharshan Sutta sitting on an elevated seat addressing the sages, but he had failed to stand up when Balaram arrived. This breach of etiquette angered Lord Balaram, who then killed Romaharshan simply by touching him with the tip of a blade of kusha grass. Although Balaram was above all Vedic injunctions, the assembled sages requested him to perform some atonement for killing a Brahmin, to set a perfect example for the general populace. Baladev then granted the prestigious seat of Speaker to the Baladev then granted the prestigious seat of Speaker of the Puranas to Romaharshan's son Ugrashrava, in accordance with the sage's desires. He also blessed Ugrashrava with a long life. Lord Baladev also killed a demon named Balvala, who had been polluting the sacrificial arena of the sages. Finally, on the sage's advice, Balaram went on a year-long pilgrimage of various holy places in India. He eventually went to Kshetra at the end of the war, when Bhima and Duryodhan met for a dual combat. Balaram tried, but could not dissuade them from fighting, an arrangement of fate. Baladev then returned to Dwarka. Sometime later, Balaram again went to Naimisharanya forest, where the sages performed fire sacrifices on his behalf. Lord Baladev gave transcendental knowledge to the sages and revealed his eternal identity to them. Friendship of the poorest with the richest. Lord Krishna had a Brahmin friend named Sudama, with whom he had lived at the home of his guru Sandipani Muni. Sudama was poverty-stricken and maintained his family with whatever came of its own accord. One day, Sudama's wife asked him to visit his friend Krishna in Dwarka and beg for some charity. Sudama was reluctant, but finally he agreed. His wife persisted. Sudama's wife begged a few handfuls of flattened rice she begged a few handfuls of flattened rice as a gift for Krishna and sent it as an offering with Sudama. When Sudama arrived at the palace of Rukmini, Krishna joyfully received him and embraced him with great joy. Krishna made Sudama sit on his own bed, washed his feet, and sprinkled the wash water on his head as a gesture of respect. One is Krishna's friend Sudama. Then there's Sudama in Mathura he made Gaurāṅga and all the boys. I think so. And then there's this Sudama. So Krishna made Sudama sit on his own feet and sprinkled the wash water on his head as a gesture of respect. He worshipped him with incense, lamps, and so on, and gave him many gifts, while Rukmini fanned Sudama, giving him the complete honor of a Brahmin. All of this astonished the residents of the palace. Krishna and Sudama recalled their activities in the Gurukul, particularly the incident of their being lost in a storm in the forest when they went to collect firewood. At that time, Krishna and Sudama held each other's hands and focused on their service to Guru. Thereafter, Krishna eagerly asked Sudama if he had brought any gift for him. Poor Sudama was ashamed to offer his gift of begged flat rice. Omniscient Krishna knew the reason for Sudama's visit. He grabbed the bundle of uncooked flat rice that Sudama was hiding and ate a handful of it with great pleasure. When he was about to eat another morsel, Rukmini lovingly stopped him. Sudama spent that night comfortably in Krishna's palace and set for home the next morning, asking any favor of Krishna. On his way back home, he thought of his good fortune of being so honored by Krishna. When Sudama arrived at his home, he found an opulent palace. In the place of his broken down house. His wife, adorned with celestial jewelry, came out of the palace and lovingly welcomed him. Sudama understood that it was Lord Krishna's mercy and had entered his new home. Although living amidst lavish comforts, Sudama maintained his mood of detachment and constantly chanted the glory of Krishna and eventually entered the world. Magnificent gathering of many great souls. Once, during a solar eclipse, people all over Bharatvarsha visited the holy place of Kurukshetra. There, the Yadus met the Vrajavasis, headed by Nanda Maharaj, who were in intense feelings of separation from Krishna. Krishna and Balaram bowed down to Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda and embraced them as their throats choked up with emotion. Nanda and Yashoda made their two sons sit on their laps and were somewhat relieved from the distress of separation. Then Krishna approached the gopis in a secluded place and consoled them, saying that they could never be separated from him. The gopis prayed simply to have Krishna's lotus feet manifest in their hearts. Draupadi met the queens of Krishna and asked them how each of them got married to Krishna. The 8 principal queens, Rukmini, Satyabhama, Jambavati, Kalindi, Mitravrinda, Satya, Bhadra, and Lakshmana, gratefully narrated how Lord Krishna had accepted them as his maidservants. Rohini Devi, representing all the 16,100 queens whom Krishna had... One second. Dandavat pranams Nirihari Prabhu. Okay. Rohini Devi, representing 100 queens whom Krishna had married after killing Narakasura, expressed their desire to follow in the footsteps of the Vraj Gopis in their service to Lord Krishna. Great sages like Narad and Vyasadeva arrived there, desiring to see Lord Krishna. Krishna glorified the purifying potency of the great sages. The learned sages then glorified Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, playing the part of an ideal human being by worshipping the Brahmins. Vasudeva then had the sages perform some Vedic sacrifices and offered them charity. Nanda Maharaj remained at Kurukshetra for 3 months, being unable to leave his beloved sons. Finally, Krishna promised that he would come to Vrindavan soon and bade farewell to Nanda, who too then departed for Vraj. The Yadavas also returned, fulfiller of his devotees' desires. Having heard the sages glorify Krishna at Kurukshetra, Vasudeva started developing reverence towards Krishna and Balarama instead of treating them as his sons. Vasudeva glorified his sons and even fell at Krishna's lotus feet, begging him to drive away the conception that the Lord is his son. But Krishna restored that conception in Vasudeva instead and pacified him. Mother Devaki praised Krishna and Balaram and requested them to revive her 6 sons whom Kamsa had killed, just as they retrieved the dead son of their guru. Krishna and Balaram at once went to the Sutala planet and met Bali Maharaj, who worshipped them and offered prayers. The lords then requested Bali to return Devaki's dead sons and brought them to their mother. Devaki felt a surge of affection for them, and milk began spontaneously flowing. She offered them that milk, which Krishna had drunk, and which now become his remnant. The 6 boys then regained their original forms as demigods and went back to heaven. Once, while touring on pilgrimage, Arjuna heard that Baladeva intended to get his sister Subhadra married to Duryodhana. Arjuna desired to marry Subhadra himself by kidnapping her. So he disguised himself as a renunciate and went to Dwarka, whose residents respected him as a great saint. Once, when Subhadra left the palace to participate in a chariot festival, Arjuna abducted her and defeated the Yadavas who tried to oppose him. Lord Balaram was angered at this, but Sri Krishna and others pacified him, who then joyfully sent the bride and groom with gorgeous wedding gifts. In the city of Mithila, there was a poor Brahmin devotee of Krishna named Shrutadev, who was always satisfied. And in the same city was the devotee king Bahulashva, who remains detached from material wealth. Pleased with the devotion of both, Lord Krishna visited their homes simultaneously in 2 forms, along with Narad and several other sages. Each of them worshipped Krishna suitably with prayers and whatever paraphernalia they had. Krishna imparted instructions on bhakti to his hosts. Lord Vishnu and Lord Shiva. Okay, I'm on the last couple pages now. In the course of describing such pastimes of Krishna, Shukadeva Goswami also described the prayers by the personified Vedas, glorifying the personal and impersonal aspects of Lord Narayan. I have to make a video explaining this verse today, actually, one of the verses from this section. Thereafter, at Parikshit's request, Shukadeva Goswami described why Lord Vishnu's devotees are poor and Lord Shiva's devotees are opulent, while the worshipful lords are otherwise. There's a whole section in Madhurya Kadambini about this. The material opulences of Shiva's devotees are products of false ego in the 3 modes. Lord Vishnu, however, is transcendental to the modes. Thus, his devotees also become transcendental. When the Lord feels special mercy for someone, he gradually deprives him of wealth and frustrates his further attempts to gain wealth. When such poverty-stricken person's relatives abandon him, he will befriend the Lord's devotees and traverse on the spiritual path. Once a demon named Vrika went to Kedarnath and worshipped Lord Shiva by offering pieces of his own flesh as oblations into the fire. That's pretty hardcore. Vrika desired a boon that the person whose head he would touch should die. Obliged, Shiva granted the boon, but the wicked demon immediately wanted to test it by putting his hand first on Shiva himself. Shiva fled for his life and approached Lord Vishnu. Vishnu then appeared as a young boy before Vrkasura and spoke to him in charming words that he shouldn't trust Shiva's word because he had become just like a hobgoblin since Prajapati Daksha cursed him. The Lord incited Vrka to test Shiva's boon by putting his hand on his own head. Bewildered, the foolish demon did so and perished. Thus, Lord Vishnu saved his dear devotee Shiva. Once a group of sages discussed who amongst the three lords, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, was the greatest, and deputed Bhrigu Muni to investigate the matter. Deciding to test the tolerance of the three lords and thus their greatness, Bhrigu first went to the court of Brahma and didn't offer him respects. Brahma became angry, but he suppressed it. Bhrigu understood it and then went to Lord Shiva, who came to embrace him. Bhrigu resisted him, calling Shiva a deviant heretic. Shiva became angry and was about to kill Bhrigu with his trident, but Parvati stopped Shiva just in time. Bhrigu then went to Vaikuntha to test Lord Narayan and directly kicked his chest as he was lying with his head on the lap of Lakshmi. Lord Narayan, instead of reacting out of anger, offered respects to Bhrigu and begged forgiveness for not noticing his arrival. Impressed, Bhrigu then went back to the assembly of sages and declared that Lord Vishnu was certainly the supreme. A visit to the abode of Mahavishnu. This is the last page. Once in Dwarka, a Brahman's wife gave birth to a son, but the boy immediately died. The Brahman took the dead body of the son to King Ugrasen's court and accused him that he had caused the death of his son by failing to execute his religious and state duties properly. By the way, I was spacing out when Brahman took the dead body. Okay. In this way, 8 sons of the Brahman died, and every time he would come and blame the king. When the 9th son also died at birth, Arjuna, who happened to be at Dwarka, heard the Brahman's sorrow and promised to protect his progeny, and vowed to enter fire if he failed to do so. After some time, when the Brahman's wife was about to give birth for the 10th time, Arjuna enveloped the maternity house with a protective cage of arrows. But as soon as the child was born, it disappeared into the sky. The Brahman profusely derided Arjuna, who then searched throughout the 14 worlds but couldn't find the newborn anywhere. Arjuna then prepared to enter fire for his failure. Lord Krishna stopped him just in time. Krishna took Arjuna in his transcendental chariot and crossed over the 7 universal islands and oceans and entered the region of dense darkness. Krishna then illuminated the area with his blazing Sudarshan chakra and gradually came to the causal ocean, within which they entered the abode of Lord Mahavishnu, who is situated on the 1,000-hooded serpent Ananta. Enlivened to see Lord Krishna along with Arjuna, Mahavishnu said, "I brought the Brahman sons here simply because I wanted to see you both. Please cause welfare to the humanity by exemplary behavior in the forms of Nara Narayan rishis." Krishna and Arjuna then took the Brahman sons, went back to Dwarka, and returned the infants to their father. Arjuna was amazed to see the greatness of Sri Krishna. In his pastimes, Lord Krishna effortlessly visited Yamaloka, Swarga, Sutala, and Karan Samudra, the causal ocean, demonstrating his unparalleled mystic potencies. And this is the last, this is it. This is the last 2 paragraphs. The Song of the Queens. In his magnificent abode of Dwarka, Lord Krishna enjoyed with his queens and pawns and palace grounds. With his graceful gestures, loving words, and sidelong glances, Krishna captivated the hearts of the queens, who would become fully absorbed in his thoughts, and thoughts of him. The transcendental madness, the unmada of the queens, filled them with such ecstasy that they saw their own mood reflected in everyone and everything else. They expressed their ecstatic mood in a song called the Mahishi Gita. The queens addressed various creatures, the Kurari and Chakravaka birds, the ocean, the moon, a cloud, a cuckoo, a mountain, a river, and so on, declaring their own great attachment to Sri Krishna on the pretext of empathizing with all these other entities. Through each of his queens, Lord Krishna begot 10 sons. Among them, the foremost was Pradyumna, who married Rukmi's daughter and begot Aniruddha. Aniruddha married Rukmi's granddaughter and begot Vajra, from whom the remainder of the Yadu dynasty descended. The members of the Yadu dynasty were virtually innumerable. That the Yadus employed 38,800,000 teachers just to educate their children says how expansive the Yadu clan was. All right, so that was the 10th canto, full 10th canto. Tomorrow we will read about Lord Nrsingadev. What time is it? Wow, today was a long reading. All right. Jai Shri Guru Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashata Rashata Shmar Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Shri Gurudev Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashata Rashata Shmar Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Shri Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashata Rashata Shmar Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashata Rashata Shmar Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitil Pravishta Maha Bhagavat Shri Goksharas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Pravishta Shri Satchiraranda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Nitil Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Rupano Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath Shara Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Sarva Abhishta Bharata Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Radha Kun Shama Kun Ki Jai Shri Mona Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya Ki Jai Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Ki Jai. And for those celebrating it right now, Shri Nrsinga Bhagavan Ki Jai Shri Nrsinga Chaturdashi Ki Jai Bhakta Pravāha Shri Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai Nrsinga Chaturdashi Maha Mahotsav Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavashita Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyashta Kripa Sindhubhyai Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat pranams everybody. Andri Hari Prabhu. Dandavat pranams. Pavatharani Mataji is also watching. I had the songs going in my head. Shamantaka jewel, Shamantaka jewel, bright and shiny jewel. And yeah, just throughout, yeah. Alright. Dandavat pranams everybody. Antaveda, the gorilla, wanted some revenge. What are some other ones? Oh, blue throated one. No, that's not from in the 10th canto though. Anyways, all right. Dandavat pranams everybody. Hari Bol.